As Thy Garden Grows. 5 months before the birth of my daughter, my days became consumed in bulbs, blooms, and denial. I studied Burgess and Burpee catalogs and trembled at what to expect when expecting. There was, however, a missing chapter. Your husband will be consumed in stuff not remotely related to child rearing. For some men, it's simonizing cars. For others, it's crafting pub sheds. For me, it was turning over suitable and mowable grass for organic veggies and flowers of every shape, size, and ethnicity. I was to be the Shakespeare of the plant world, my yard the globe, and my soon-to-be baby a Robin Goodfellow, who would have a lifetime helping me edit and cultivate and harvest every miracle of God. My dear, patient, and exceptionally pregnant wife, Mary Jane, did not share my affinity for dirt, sweat, and sunburn. If it was up to me, she said, I would have a concrete garden or a bamboo backyard. Love's labors lost. I was shocked. When courting, she loved the outdoors and courtyards full of blossoms. Loved leisurely strolls in Cape May, admiring the gardens, but never the hydrangeas. Old lady plants, she called them. Loved picnics by the pond near her flat. Well, after I cleared toxic Canada goose poop for my floral blanket and grad student feast of baguette, jam, and shame. And she loved nothing more than getting lost in the loveliness of Longwood Gardens. When I think of us in heaven, we are sitting forever entwined near the chimes tower with a hint of lavender and lilac, surrounding us with the gentle murmur of the cascading stream. A midsummer night's dream deferred. For some reason, I thought this love of gardens would one day translate into her wanting to help make our own this side of paradise. But alas, Adam and Eve, communal digging, planting, and reaping were not to be. Whatever shambles I made of our new yard was my mess. No wife would kneel to the rescue in bonnet, gardening gloves, and denim blue overalls, no matter how sexy I made this image appear. I was soon over my head in enthusiasm, alone, with only my spade as a dance partner. Mulch ado about nothing. On Saturday, I found the perfect garden center, and I spent hours with 2 carts hunting and dreaming and planting my garden. I had 1/8 of an acre, but in my mind's eye, I had most of Mulligan Hill, like some southern gentleman farmer. Before I turned solid green to mushy brown, I even considered installing a year-round greenhouse somewhere, maybe near the grill. I stacked a nursery into my small sedan, sealed with every pollen. My nose tingled, neck tightened, head got dizzy, but was it fear of handling a child that made me so lightheaded? I think I'm allergic to plants, I told my wife. She looked at the trail of mud on the white tiles in her new home. I got you some beautiful roses, I said as my apology. She looked doubtfully at the twigs. The twigs, she knew, were not for her. As the due date was approaching, I underestimated not only weeds and aphids and Japanese beetles, but this thing called husbandly duties, and not the sexually enticing duties. For some reason, this baby was draining my wife's energy. So I did more shopping and caressed more feet. I made dinner, and the dinner dishes I washed. And what pregnant wife of mine was to bend over to scrub the tub? Okay, when the great outdoors called, she did sometimes scrub and bend, but I have since learned that nothing, even digging out an overgrowth of mint, ever came before dirt inside the home. Then came the breathing classes and the birthing classes and the lectures with the lactation expert and this thing called a 40-hour-a-week job. Nothing stubs more green thumbs than full-time jobs. Catherine broke on through at the end of October, our own Halloween pumpkin, but no pumpkins grew in my patch of despair. Death and decay festooned the yard she inherited. So, from her brand new painted Children of the World nursery, in Fire Engine Red, I held Catherine and showed her the kingdom. This looks like a scene from the wasteland now, I said, but next spring, you just wait, girl. You'll be the prettiest flower among a rainbow of flowers. The Taming of the Sprout. Then, in a cue of foreshadowing, she spat up breast milk all over me. After a few months at home with Catherine, Mary Jane started to work 2 days a week. On Tuesday nights, she even dared to spare 2 hours to renew and rejuvenate away from the demands of Old MacDonald. Her notes read, "Please keep lotion on Catherine's butt. Clean in a downward motion. There's frozen breast milk in the freezer. Reheat in a boiling pot. I'll be thinking about you guys." When Catherine was able to sway upright, I would place a bonneted and sunscreen-lathered baby by the beds and show her the difference between good plant, petunia, and bad plant, chickweed. My daughter would be my accomplice, which, after she pulled out a mum, lasted 30 seconds. She raised the kill proudly, gritting all 3 teeth. Turned out she was her mother's accomplice. Much ado about Manure. I made great use of nap times. No need to ask why dirt covered the baby monitor, or grime on Catherine. During a baby meltdown, there was no time to rinse and wash. "I don't use any bad chemicals in my garden," I said. "It's all organic, so Catherine may have manure on her. It's certified organic." A bountiful garden may have mitigated such unfortunate encounters. After all, Mary Jane is a dietitian, and impressing her with several varieties of beans and tomatoes and cucumbers may have been a successful bargaining cornucopia, especially since I was becoming quite the culinary star in the kitchen. I had come a long way since my infamous flaming scallop and hazelnut creamer shepherd pie days. But alas, once again, oh dear reader, in those eager younger days, my gardening failures far outweighed my successes. Those beautiful flaming red bushes in the spring were sticks by the fall. My carrots the size of pacifiers, peppers with no pep, and promising hybrid roses. 1, maybe 2 blooms, and then mildew, fungi, black spot, Japanese beetles, dengue fever, the black plague, and some pest called the wiggles. To prune or not to prune? I am, however, not one to be daunted. Those tempting seed catalogs would arrive, and I would plan my wonderland, and then months later, I would survey my land of indifference when time slips away, here, there, a day, a week, then the horrifying yellows of August, the ragweed, and the sun brutal on crops and ego and pride. Season after season, year after year, that spiteful August sun spotlighted my failures. Then, at dinner, I would say, babe, maybe next year I'll just fill in everything with stone and start a Zen garden. I forgot what Mary Jane said. Many words are not fit to print in a family publication, but it nearly rhymes with neuron and rings to the key of irrational exuberance and dead roses in old pots. And let me tell you, dead roses are not romantic. Still, that's the running refrain in our home. Time to put some plants in pots and forget about them. See, I hate throwing anything out. Placing plants in pots allowed hope for better behavior, at least until winter. That hope always went to compost. Compost is a good metaphor. Present failures will yield future successes. Gardeners know more about failure than any other profession. Wait, now. After writers, gardens know that we get better the more we fail. Too much potash, not enough acidity, too much wood ash in the compost, too little nitrogen, prune bush too late, too early, hay instead of straw for compost, too much description, too much overcrowding of adverbs. Well, there's a consequence. Dead plants, bored readers. To gardeners and writers, it's all trial and error and YouTube tutorials. All's well that ends in a finger. Gardeners carry on a long tradition of failures. But I take this knowledge of failure, and I am not only better prepared for the next season, but I am better prepared as a father. An infected watermelon plant rushed to the county co-ed for immediate consultation is much better than a neglected infected child. The lessons in the field carried over into the nursery, the playground, and the classroom. I was able to see the big picture and to nurture when needed and to leave the damn thing alone too for it to grow on its own pace. I can expect what too much watering will do for my child. I know when to let the pot go dry. I know when to power wash an aphid off a rose like a bad boyfriend. And to this day, I use a certain digit to curse one of those former boyfriends. The Merchant of Netting. Over many seasons, I learned south-facing versus north-facing. I learned about nitrogen, started composting, started to understand science. My blueberry bushes flourished in the acidic soil, and Catherine loved the blueberries, but the birds devoured them, and so I used netting, and they got caught in the netting. And nothing saddens a child more than a frantic bird squawking for dear life. A friendly, mostly drunk neighbor once jumped over the fence to rescue the bird. Over time, over many seasons, and an added lovely child, Sarah, who loves flower arranging and cutting, but not dirt and bugs, I learned even more. And now with even more land and some more time, I am inching closer to that coveted title, Master Gardener. Gardening and parenting are not all that different. While it is true, as I heard one comedian say, that when you plant a carrot, you get a carrot. But when you plant a child, you never know what's going to spring up. 13 years later, that simple carrot could turn into a cayenne pepper. A plant placed in a timeout pot will never, ever call you a bad gardener. This, above all, to thy own petals be true. Sarah once asked me if I started gardening as a distraction or as a stress reliever. Well, I started gardening to become a better parent, I said. Do you think it worked? She gave me a late summer bouquet from the garden. She spent a long time selecting, cutting, and arranging. She called it Remnants of Glory. I think she answered my question.